Joining me now is economist and senior research strategist at George Mason University, Charles Blahous, a policy expert who knows so much about this subject. He authored a book entitled Social Security, The Unfinished Work. Welcome, Charles.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. And let's get right to it. When was the last time Social Security needed reform? I believe it was 1983. Is that correct?
The last major reforms were in 1983. Now, we've needed reforms for a long time since then, but we haven't been getting them.
So let's walk through time before 1983 briefly to kind of set the table for 1983, and then we'll talk about what happened after that. So tell us how we got to the point in 1983 where it needed reform.
Well, that's a great question, because a lot of people do not know that if Social Security still existed in the basic form that it was under FDR, we actually wouldn't have a financing shortfall today. What happened in the 1970s was that there was an expansion of the program, and there was an automatic indexation of the growth of benefits. So each year, starting in the 1970s, there is an increase in the initial benefit that is paid to each subsequent cohort of retirees. And that increase is much faster than the rate of price inflation. There was a consultant panel at the time that warned lawmakers this would not be sustainable over the long run, but lawmakers didn't heed the warnings, and that drives a lot of the problem that we have today.
So again, just to refresh the public's memory, the late 70s were rife with extraordinarily high inflation, is that right, and interest rates and everything. So did that partly fuel the effort in the 70s to increase funding?
Well, yes, in several respects. One is it made the idea of inflation indexation more attractive and necessary seeming to lawmakers. Unfortunately, they made some technical errors in how they went about it. But the other thing that was influenced by the economic environment was this decision to index the growth of benefits for average wage growth. In the 70s, as I think you know very well, there was a period where real wage growth was negative. So lawmakers didn't fully appreciate how this would drive the growth of system costs going forward, because that wasn't really the experience that people were having in the 1970s.
So, all right, so get us to the point in 1983 where they felt necessary to make a major adjustments to Social Security. What prompted it, and what was the result?
Well, what happened was that the program was literally on the verge of not being able to send out the checks. The trust funds were just about depleted of their spending authority. President Reagan appointed an emergency commission. Rather, he did some of the appointments, but the leaders of Congress also made appointments to the commission. The commission flailed around a lot in the 1982 election season, because even through the auspices of the commission, people were afraid to deal with Social Security in an election year environment. They came out of the election, and the checks were literally just a few months away from not going out. And there were emergency negotiations. They were the key senators, Dole, Moynihan, others were represented on the commission. There was a fellow named Robert Ball, who basically represented House Speaker Tip O'Neill on the commission, and they negotiated a package with advisors of the Reagan administration. They put together about 2/3 of a solution, and the final 1/3 was added in amendments on the Senate floor.
So what was the end result?
The end result was a solution that was solvent for a temporary period, but not sustainable over the long term. One of the things that is very interesting about those processes is that the commission members were getting from the actuaries estimates of how much each provision would fix the long-term 75-year shortfall on average. But they were not getting estimates from the actuaries on how much the provisions would do for the program in each specific year. And so when they put the package together, they wound up with something that had huge surpluses in the near term, but even larger deficits in the long term. And so literally the year after the solution was enacted, trustees' reports started coming out again saying the system is going back into insolvency.
So is it fair to say that waiting till the 11th hour isn't a good idea when you're dealing with a monumental problem like this?
Well, that is certainly a fair statement under any circumstances. I would say it's even stronger. We should make that statement even more strongly in our current circumstance. If we were to wait till the trust fund depletion date of 2034 to try to fix this problem, by then it is simply too late to reasonably solve it. Right now, the program shortfall is about equivalent to 27% of all future benefit claims. That's huge. Obviously, that would not be an easy shortfall to close. But by the time you get to 2034, the shortfall is so large that even if you completely eliminated all new benefit claims, the system would still go insolvent. So by then, it's too late to really to solve the problem.
So let's talk about public sentiment in the current form here. We mentioned it earlier in the show that a lot of the younger individuals believe that there's going to be no Social Security for them. Can you talk a little bit more about the public sentiment at all age groups?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Generally speaking, older generations, this has always been the case. Older generations don't want to see any changes, right? They're dependent on benefits. They figure they played by the rules. They're done with their end of it, and they want to make sure the government holds up their end of it. So they're saying leave things as they are. The younger you go, you almost get an overcorrection in the other direction. You talk to young people, and they say, I don't think benefits are going to be there for me at all, right? And the reality is, it's in the middle. We have to make changes, despite what today's seniors would like to have happen. But the system's not going to disappear. It's not going to stop sending benefit checks out altogether, as young people would fear. The risk is that we would have a very different type of system going forward, simply if lawmakers are unwilling to preserve the way Social Security has operated historically as a self-financing benefit that workers can say that they earned and paid for. That is what is at risk. I don't think the system is going to disappear, but there is the risk that they would have to do a massive bailout from the general fund, and then Social Security really wouldn't be Social Security anymore. It would be like another welfare program competing for funding each year from within the general budget, and with benefits that are much more changeable, much less reliable, simply because they bear no connection to what workers actually put in.
Okay, we've got about a minute left, so let me ask you this one final question. Just tell people, if we didn't do anything, what would happen in 10 years with the fund? And you said it's not going to go away. Can you give us some more specifics about that?
Yeah, well, legally what would happen is the system is not permitted by law to send out benefit checks in the absence of financial resources in the trust fund. So basically, you would have an effective across-the-board benefit cut immediately of about 20% or so through the mechanism of delay, right? The checks basically would be delayed until the payroll taxes came into the trust funds to be able to finance them. And those payroll taxes would be lagging about 20% shy of what the program owes. So people would be getting their checks, they'd be getting them on a delayed basis. Now, in practical likelihood, it's unlikely lawmakers would stand for that, right? What's more likely in a practical sense is that they would do a massive bailout of the system from the general fund. And that would really be the worst of all policy worlds, because on the one hand, you'd have to issue all this additional debt to keep full benefits flowing. And on the other hand, workers' benefits would become less secure because, again, they would lose that connection to what they put in, and benefits would just be whatever lawmakers feel they can afford each year.
Wow. Well, it's a huge problem. We're going to have to deal with it, and we appreciate your insight and setting the table for us. Charles Blahous, thank you very much.